5 years. 5 years of silence. That's how long it had been since my son, Kieran, had walked out the door and disappeared from our lives. He was 23, fresh out of college, and brimming with a quiet rage about the life his mother and I had chosen for him. One day he was there. The next, his room was empty, save for a note saying he needed to find himself somewhere we couldn't influence him. Those 5 years took a heavier toll on me than the previous 20. Lisette, my wife, cried herself to sleep for months. She'd call his phone every week until it was disconnected, and she'd drive past places she thought she might see him. She never stopped hoping he'd just walk through the front door and say he was sorry. I dealt with his absence differently. It tore me apart, but I respected his choice. If Kieran needed space to become the man he was meant to be, then I would give him that space. But I never stopped preparing for his return. See, there were things Kieran didn't know. Things I'd kept from him and his mother to protect them both. Our family had money, real money. Not just the comfortable middle-class life we presented to the world, but generational wealth that stemmed from my grandfather's early investments in technology back in the 70s. When those companies went public, our family became quietly, invisibly rich. Early in my marriage, I decided to hide this from Lisette and Kieran. I'd seen what inherited wealth did to families. The entitlement, the laziness, the way it poisoned relationships. I wanted my son to earn his own way, to understand the value of work and struggle. The money would be there when he was ready, when he had proven himself as a man. So we lived modestly. I worked my job as an engineering consultant. We drove normal cars and lived in a nice but not extravagant house. The real money sat in investments and accounts that only I knew about. Even my estate attorney thought it was excessive. But I was convinced I was protecting my family from something that could destroy them. When Kieran left, I began to prepare more actively for his eventual return. I opened a trust fund in his name, one that would mature when he turned 30. $7 million, carefully invested and growing. By the time he was ready to access it, he would be older, hopefully wiser, and hopefully the kind of man who could handle such a responsibility. All the documents, bank statements, investment portfolios, the trust paperwork, were kept in a fireproof safe in my home office. I told myself that one day, when he came home, when he was ready to be part of our family again, I would sit him down and explain everything. Lisette never knew. It would have killed her to know we could have given Kieran everything he wanted, that we could have prevented whatever pain drove him away if I had just been honest about our financial situation. She blamed herself for his leaving, thinking she had been too strict or not understanding enough. The truth would have destroyed her. 3 weeks ago, at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, I was awakened by the front door opening. I've always been a light sleeper, and any unusual sound in the house wakes me instantly. I lay there listening, wondering if Lisette had gotten up for something, but I could hear her breathing steadily beside me. Then I heard careful, quiet footsteps moving through the house. My first thought was a burglar. My second, the one that made my heart race, was that impossibly Kieran had come home. I slipped out of bed and crept to the top of the stairs. The footsteps were in my office, and a thin line of light glowed under the door. Someone was using a flashlight, trying not to wake us. I moved silently down the stairs, my bare feet quiet on the hardwood floors. The office door was cracked open. Through the gap, I could see a figure crouched in front of my safe, working at the electronic lock with a device. In the dim light, I could make out the shape of broad shoulders, dark hair, and familiar proportions. It was Kieran. My son had come home after 5 years of silence, and he was breaking into my safe. I stood in the doorway for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, watching him work. He had grown leaner, more muscular. His hair was longer than he'd worn it as a young man. He moved with the confidence of someone who had learned how to take care of himself in the world. He was also clearly experienced at breaking into safes. The lock clicked open. Kieran pulled the heavy door wide and began removing documents. In the beam of his flashlight, I could see him photographing pages with his phone, bank statements, investment summaries, the trust fund paperwork, everything I had hidden to protect him. He was stealing in the middle of the night. I cleared my throat. He spun around, and for the first time in 5 years, I was looking at my son's face. He had filled out, his features more angular. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there when he left. But those eyes, they were flat, cold, calculating. Not the eyes of someone who had come home because he missed his family. "Hello, Dad," he said quietly, his voice deeper now, more controlled. "Kieran?" I stepped into the room and closed the door behind me. "It's been a while." He didn't move from his position in front of the safe. He didn't try to hide what he was doing or act ashamed. 5 years, 2 months, 12 days. "You've been counting." "I've been planning." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Planning what?" He gestured to the documents scattered around the safe. "Planning this. Planning to get what should have been mine years ago." I moved closer, and he tensed, ready to run or fight. "How did you know about the money?" "I hired a private investigator 2 years ago," he said, his voice matter-of-fact. "Cost me $12,000, but it was worth it. It's amazing what you can find out about someone when you really want to know." "Why?" The word came out broken, barely a whisper. "Because I needed to understand why you let me struggle." He stood up slowly, keeping the flashlight pointed away from my face. "Do you know what the last 5 years have been like for me, Dad? Do you know what I've had to do to survive?" I shook my head. "I've washed dishes in restaurants where the health inspector would shut them down if he actually inspected them. I've slept in my car in Walmart parking lots. I've sold plasma twice a week just to afford gas money. I've worked construction in 100-degree heat for 12 hours a day with no health insurance." Each word was a knife. "Kieran, you left. You chose." "I chose to leave because I thought this family had nothing left to give me." His voice rose, and I frantically gestured for him to keep quiet. Lisette was still sleeping upstairs. I thought I was protecting my pride by walking away from a middle-class family that couldn't support my dreams. I thought I was being noble by not asking for help you couldn't afford to give. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Turns out I was just being stupid. Turns out my father was sitting on millions of dollars while I was donating blood to pay rent." "I was protecting you," I said. "I was trying to make sure you learned. You were trying to control me." He moved closer, and I could see the anger burning in his eyes now. "You decided what kind of man I should be. You decided what I deserved and when I deserved it. You played God with my life while I was suffering." I wanted to argue, to explain my reasoning, but standing there, looking at what my son had become, I wasn't sure I could justify it anymore. "How long have you been back in town?" I asked. 3 months. I've been watching the house, learning your routines, waiting for the right opportunity." 3 months. The betrayal was complete. "Lisette has been. She cries about you, Kieran. She still sets a place for you at dinner sometimes." Something flickered across his face then. Guilt, maybe, or pain, but it was gone quickly. "I didn't come back for her," he said. "I came back for what's mine. It's not yours, not yet. The trust doesn't mature until you're 30. "The trust." He smiled, and it was the coldest expression I'd ever seen on my son's face. "You mean the trust you set up without telling me, with conditions you decided on, that I can't access for 3 more years? That trust?" I nodded. "See, that's the thing about hiring a really good private investigator, Dad. He doesn't just find out what you have, he finds out how to get it." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about identity theft. I'm talking about forged documents. I'm talking about the fact that with enough information about someone's financial life, you can become them, at least on paper." I stared at him, trying to process what he was telling me. "You're going to steal the money. I'm going to take what should have been mine years ago." He turned back to the safe and pulled out more documents. "And I'm going to disappear again, this time permanently." "Kieran, please, let's talk about this. Let's figure something out. You don't have to." "I don't have to what? Trust you again?" Believe that this time you'll actually treat me like your son instead of some project you're working on? He was right, and we both knew it. I had treated him like a project. I had made decisions about his life without including him. But watching him prepare to steal from his own family, to disappear forever and leave his mother heartbroken again, I couldn't let it happen. "What about your mother?" I asked. He paused in his document gathering. "What about her?" "She never knew about the money. She spent 5 years blaming herself for your leaving. She thinks she failed as a mother. If you disappear again, if she never understands why, it will destroy her." "Then tell her the truth," he said. "Tell her that her husband is a liar who values control more than family. I was trying to protect both of you." "You were trying to play God," he said, closing the safe door and starting to put the documents into a backpack I hadn't noticed before. "And now you get to live with the consequences." I stood there, watching my son prepare to walk out of my life forever, taking not just money, but any hope of reconciliation with him. In trying to protect him from the corrupting influence of wealth, I had turned him into someone willing to steal from his own family. "There's something else you should know," I said quietly. He looked up from his packing. "The trust isn't the only money. There's more, a lot more. Enough that you'd never have to work again if you didn't want to. Enough to set up your own children and their children. But it's contingent on you remaining part of this family. It's structured so that if you disappear, if you cut ties completely, it goes to charity instead." This was a lie. There were no such contingencies in my estate planning. But I needed him to understand that his choices had consequences beyond just money. "You're lying," he said, but I could hear uncertainty in his voice. "Am I?" "You hired a private investigator, but he only found what was easy to find. The real money, the serious money, is buried deeper than that, hidden in ways that only I know about." Kieran stared at me for a long moment. "How much money are we talking about?" $37 million, I said, "give or take." The number hung in the air between us. It was the truth, the full truth of what I had been hiding all these years. "37 million, he repeated. 37 million that disappears forever if you walk out that door tonight." He laughed again, but this time it sounded broken. "So now you're trying to buy me back." "I'm trying to give you a choice," I said. "You can take what's in those documents and disappear. It's enough to live comfortably for a while. Or you can stay. You can be part of this family again. You can help me figure out how to handle this money in a way that doesn't destroy us. And Mom, we tell her everything together. We deal with the consequences together." Kieran was quiet for a long time, staring at the floor. When he looked up, his eyes were different. Still hurt, still angry, but not cold anymore. "I don't know if I can forgive you," he said. "I don't know if I can forgive myself," I replied. "But maybe we can figure it out together." He zipped up the backpack and slung it over his shoulder. For a moment I thought he was leaving anyway. Then he pulled out the documents and set them on my desk. "I'm not staying because of the money," he said. "I'm staying because I want my mother to know the truth. She deserves that much." I nodded. "She does. And I'm staying because I want to understand how a father could love his son so much that he'd nearly destroy him trying to protect him." "I'd like to understand that myself," I said. We stood there in my office as the sun started to rise outside. Two men who had nearly lost each other forever over money that was supposed to bring security. My prodigal son had returned, not with humility and repentance, but with justified anger and a plan for revenge. Maybe that was exactly what our family needed.